and I had it the next day. I was but that stuff is made with all the juices of everything, you know, so it's not really well drained.
All right, everyone. Sorry, it's 3:30, so we're going to start the meeting here, and I appreciate everyone for coming today and for joining us on Zoom. So thank you very much. What we like to do once we start the meeting is start with a Pledge of Allegiance. So if y'all stand up and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, let's get a few more people here. All right. So anything on the minutes from the last meeting? Did you have a chance to review those?
Yeah, okay. Everything's good to me.
All right, I will take a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sign, please, and thank you, Will, for the minutes. Signature. All right, we have many favorite items on our agenda today. This one is the Valley Cross Road Bridge. So, little history on that very quickly. We had voted last year at town meeting not to do anything with the trusses and not to expend any money on restoring or reclaiming the trusses for the bridge on Valley Cross Road. And a lot has happened since then. So we have 3 folks from the DOT on the line, and I'm going to ask which one of you would raise your hand that would like to speak up first and answer questions. So is that Jill, Steve, or Ron? Nobody? Nobody volunteered? Steve. Hi.
The project engineer on this for Graham Peterson, the consultant. I guess what I was going to say, first of all, I just want to start by saying I'm sorry, I apologize. I actually really intended to be up there, and I think a few things got away from me, and I realized I was going to be late, and I didn't want to. Obviously, it's the first item on the agenda, too, so I would have been late, and that would have been inconvenience for everyone, so I apologize.
Thank you.
Definitely intended to be there. I had my mask ready to go.
We're all set.
So what I was going to start with is just give a quick summary of where things stand, the project, and then maybe we can get into, well, where things stand. I was going to talk a bit about the dwarf blueberries, and then we can maybe talk about the truss mitigation. Does that sound fine?
Actually, I'd like to reverse that if I could, because the truss mitigation, I need a little bit more background on it. And from my standpoint, and I'm not sure how John and Frank feel, but I feel like we've asked and answered whether or not we had to reclaim these, and now we're finding out that it is a requirement that we have to save the trusses. And I see
That's
Jill
correct.
shaking her head no. So
I'll let Jill speak then to that.
go ahead, Jill.
All right, I'll jump in here. It is not a requirement that you save the trusses. That was one of the mitigation stipulations that we had talked about really early on, was because it's a 1905 Parker truss, as you guys know. It's the only remaining pony Parker truss in the state. You guys have the only one. So the idea was, can we preserve it? Can we save it? The first question I think posed to the town was, can you preserve it in place and reuse the trusses on a new bridge? They're essentially ornamental at that point, which is completely fine. They're ornamental now. And I'm pretty sure that the cost estimates came back really high for that, and that's why DOT was questioning whether or not we could participate in that cost, because it was a pretty large amount for, quote unquote ornamental things going on this bridge.
Right.
From there, I think we had said, can we look other places? So I know Steve and his team and a few others asked around to say, can we put these anyplace else in Jackson? That's kind of the last I had until this, this last flurry of activity was, can it go anyplace else? And I think that was still kind of up in the air on whether or not somebody else would would want them. So
Okay.
in talking to Ron Kleiner, who's DOT's PM, is that if we can move those that would still be a cost that would be covered at that 80-20 split. So it would be an eligible cost. We'd have to work out what those logistics would look like though. If nobody else wants the trusses and we can't reuse them, that's when we need to look at some sort of mitigation or compensation for the loss of those trusses. So there's no requirement that you have to save them, but we do need to, if we get into mitigation where we're not going to reuse the trusses at all, then we need to bring in the Division of Historical Resources and likely the Army Corps of Engineers, who is your lead federal agent, and they kind of oversee all of this. This all falls under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, and they're that lead reviewer for that portion of it.
Okay.
But I don't want you guys to think that you have to save them. That is not.
No, so that
is
brings
not
up,
the thing.
the next question is whether or not any of these sound like they're going to cost the town 20% of whatever it costs to either get rid of them or get them to someone else. And that part two of that question is, if we do have someone that's interested in them, would they be able to pay 100% of the cost if they wanted them? So it wouldn't cost the town any money.
That's a good question. I don't know if Ron, you can jump in there.
Yeah, that is a really good question. That's never been brought up before. I guess I would say you probably could figure that out. That's sort of a non-participating cost that's being funded by somebody else, as long as the historical agencies are okay with that sort of arrangement. That's not something I'm aware of having been done before, so that's where I'm kind of up in the air on that.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is because we do have two parties that are interested. One is the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation and then the Jackson Historical Society. Also, because we've already had this on a town warrant, and I believe the dollar value was around $45,000, and that was over a year ago, I would assume the costs are higher because everything is higher right now. So anywhere around $45,000 and up is not something that the town already voted no. So if we can have the money, the funds from another party and not incur any costs in the town and still preserve the trust through an interested party, I think that would be a win-win. And so I just want to make sure that we're exploring our options. And I'm going to put you on hold. Burr, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify though, that $45,000 or $50,000, that was the total cost, so that if that were the price, the town would pay $10,000. Just want to make sure that was clear. The town would pay 10 and and DOT would pay the 40.
No, that's what I'm saying. We already voted not to spend money, and I want to know if it's okay if either interested parties or the parties together want to pay the entire bill to take the trusses off of the town's hands. That would be the preference.
Right, well, maybe the question, I guess, for Ron then would be, if you don't want to pay any, not the matching 20% of anything, what's the consequences of that? Can you do that?
And Ron, could you hear that at all? I'm not sure how my microphone works on there.
I lost the last half of the sentence.
So Burr was saying, I guess I thought I had stated it. I want to make sure the town does not have to incur any costs. So is it okay if an outside party pays 100% of the cost to take the trusses off our hands?
And I guess from the state bridge aspect of it, that would be a non-participating cost, which you've done before.
Right.
And I guess there would just need to be some sort of arrangement clearly through the historic people to make sure that that's an okay arrangement with really kind of a third party taking care of the mitigation aspect.
Right.
That would be my question on that.
So Anne and Ellen, have you talked about this at all? And do either of you want to talk? Anne? And this is Anne Pillion from the Jackson Historic Society.
Hi, even to just back up from that, I thought the first question to the town was, it all of a sudden went that the town was gonna have to pay 100% because DOT reneged, and they said, no, we actually won't pay for ornamental reattachment. So the vote to the town was, we're gonna have to pay 100% of it, but I think that now has been revisited, and that the DOT will pay 80%. So the plan had been for the town to pay the 20% to reattach them if DOT was paying 80%. So that's where I'm confused right now, because Burr's email had said,
So you're saying that the 45,000 was 100% of the cost that we had voted on, but now DOT would pay 80% of that, so the town would only have to incur, like you said, around, 9,000 or 10,000 or whatever.
and the dollar amount, again, Burr's shaking his head yes, but the dollar amount I'm not as versed on, but that the vote by the town was to not spend the 100% now that it was being
Right.
thrown at them.
Yep, and so as far as that, again, it would have to go to a town warrant, I would think, to vote on whether or not to spend money on the trusses if we had another option.
Even though prior to that vote, it's going back to what it was, that the town, it's an 80-20 split.
Yeah,
Spending money, I think, is what the
Yeah.
key factor there. I mean, it is, because we didn't vote for 100%, doesn't mean we're gonna take anything other than, 20%. I mean, it's an all or nothing deal. I mean, anytime we would have to go back to, for $10,000, we would have to go back to the town and do another vote to see if they wanted to accept it at that 20%. Sure.
Yeah, I think one way of looking at it is, the whole project is 80-20 from the
Right.
beginning, get-go. And this would just be another project cost, like just if we had to, add an extra culvert in or add a piece of sidewalk in. This is mitigation's another project cost like anything else. So at 80-20, it would be just like any other cost. There wouldn't be anything special than I think you've originally voted on. As long as you're not exceeding the total cap budget you get, that you established for the whole project.
and we don't actually know what that cost is today because we have to go out to bid again for the engineering and construction, correct?
Yeah, Steve can probably talk to you where we're at on the budgets, on the overall.
Okay, we'll take that for a second. Ellen, did you want to put anything in on this?
Yeah, Ellen Shelby from Jackson Ski Touring.
Thank
And we were just offering to store it, so that was, I didn't.
Okay,
Yeah, and. with
thanks
the-
for clarifying.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Non-interested party suggested that they would be a beautiful entrance to the transfer station. So we have that as a consideration. No, that's not. That was purely a joke. But okay. So, Steve, anything to add on that? Then it would just be considered part of the new quote that we'll be getting for construction.
Right, so just to take a step back, what I was saying before, or going to say before Jill stepped into, is that there is some form, and Jill, please correct me if I'm wrong again, but there is some form of mitigation that needs to be done for these trusses. It doesn't necessarily mean that the trusses need to stay in the town or be refurbished. The $45,000, or I thought it was maybe $50,000, they're talking about the refurbishing of the trusses, which was the reason why that the town was voting years ago about on whether or not to spend that money is back before the state was going to participate, as Jill said. And ironically, at the same time as that vote was happening, we found a new cost, the DOT was able to review it, and then they were willing to participate. So that was indeed, as I think Ann pointed out, that that was a decision based on the whole cost being incurred by the town. So that's what I want to add. And the refurbishing was White Mountain Fabricators that they came up with an estimate to do completely, like, go to the site, pick up the trusses, bring them back to their shop, fix them, clean them up, paint them, make them look like new, and then ship them back to the site to be reattached to the bridge or whatever site they would be going to. And their actual estimate was, I think it was $34,000. We bumped that up a little bit because I bumped it up a little bit. I thought that was a little bit low, considering the cost for using a 3-coat system for New Hampshire DOT 3-coat system, paint system. So that has been bumped up a little bit already. I don't know if we could revisit the fabricator and see if they want to revise the cost, or we could simply adjust the cost for Well, probably the best bet is to go with the fabricators if their cost estimate is still remotely valid. That cost estimate was dated July 9th, 2020. So it's, it's almost, wow, it's already almost 2 years old. Imagine
No, that would be 2019. 2019 it was before, because wasn't it before at the town meeting in 2020? Anyway, it's old.
I had on my, I think I still have it up actually. I thought it was January 9th, 2020.
Okay.
Because I remember noting it was right before the COVID.
Yeah, that would have been before this town meeting in 2020 then. Do you have any questions or thoughts, Frank?
I'm just wondering, Ann, what would you like to see done with this bridge? With the trusses? Trusses?
First caveating, I'm not a Jackson resident.
That's all right, we understand, I know that.
Okay.
That's all right, but
Just speaking from preservation being such a, interest in, of the Historical Society's desire to save the history of Jackson, I kind of was thinking with the turn of events that the DOT realizing, yes, they're historic and they need mitigation and the importance of them, them paying 80%, I feel like it's feasible and I feel like the best solution from where I stand is to see them reattached as ornamental, refurbished and ornamental back to the crossroad. My second thought would be to find another location for them. And the Historical Society is very supportive and interested to help with that process down the road if that's what happens. I can, off the top of my head, think of other mitigation efforts like over the bridge over the Wildcat River, higher up river for on the golf course / cross-country trails. I see places in town that they could be more of it as an exhibit with signage of the history. I can see some areas within the village that would work nicely. And what help we can do for any fundraising that might be needed down the road. I'm interested in participating in that process.
Okay. Thanks, Ann.
so Burr, is it possible to do, or we already done away with this idea of reattaching and using them on the bridge that you've been engineering for the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's Steve's the guy engineering, so I think probably Steve's the one to answer that question.
Okay.
Did you hear that, Steve?
Yep, I did. So the plans are complete right now. We'd have to revisit the existing plans or the finished plans to have attachments, determine its attachments and how the trusses would be attached to the truss. When this was decided that they were not going to be reattached, we moved on. That's when we actually, I remember that picture of the stone veneer facing on the bridge. Mm-hmm. So we went ahead with that to final design and finished it. So we'd have to revisit the plans and the estimate in order to do that. But we could do that and just take a little bit more effort.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, I did design, the bridge is designed, it's a concrete deck because the DPW wanted some far less maintenance and really be some attachments to putting the trusses on the concrete deck and then, supporting them appropriately. So they're stable.
John?
I kind of have a little mixed feelings about it. As I said, we voted on not having them, and one of the reasons I brought up was a possible safety hazard on them. That's that was one of the things, people climbing on them, and I just thought that with the new design, it was nice to have that little punch out there for people to take pictures. And as much as I like to see them saved, I don't want to see them thrown away or not used, but I'd like to find a location for them would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
we don't have to change the plans. It's going to cost more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
The punch out, you mean the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
That would still be part of it even with the trusses back on.
Like, they're still going to have to spend more money to redesign it some for.
Yeah, there's going to be some more cost here.
Yeah. Okay, so I think one of the biggest concerns too is storage location. Oh, Ellen, did you have something?
No, we have just, we do have a location.
Okay, so you would be able to store for X number of months or years. Okay.
Is it a secret? Do we know where would you?
No, we have a lot at Hemlock, on Hemlock Drive. It's pretty well out of these might be the most attractive things to be stored there.
That's neat. That's very, very generous too.
Yeah, well, we have it, but if we store them in that location, the two-part question, maybe one for Steve is it feasible to take the trusses and disconnect them so they're each one's in 2 pieces so they can be transported, because they're 69 feet or something like that. It would be pretty tough to get them into the site.
You could not take a 69-foot.
Right. So you have to take the trusses and, cut them in half or somehow make them so they're more manageable length.
Mm-hmm. Steve, did you hear that question?
I heard some about the storage and the length of the trusses.
Yeah, would it be possible to break them apart into 2 pieces so the length of them at 69 feet could be cut in half and enable them to be transported for storage?
Yeah, so they're about 70 feet long.
69,
I don't remember them having a splice where it'd be easy to disconnect them.
yeah. Right.
I'll take a quick look.
Must be bolted together somehow.
Yeah.
And I guess while he's doing that, maybe for Jill Edelman that's on the line, is there any preservation required? I mean, do we have to send the trusses down that I'm watching about fabrication to sort of, seal them before we store them? Obviously, if you store them outside in the weather,
Right.
they're just
So
going to continue to degrade in the condition that they're in, right?
were you able to hear that, Jill?
Are there any requirements to do anything else?
I think I got the gist of it. And one of the issues with storing them is that it's a very green measure, and we love the idea of it, but the practicality of it is really hard from a regulatory standpoint. So it's not that I don't love the idea that you guys can reuse them in the future. It's that from a regulatory standpoint, the purpose of mitigation is to compensate for the loss of your bridge. If you were to store these, there's no saying whether or not, they'll be reused in the future. So from a mitigation standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, it's really hard mitigation to sell to a federal agent, which in your case would be Army Corps. If you want to do this outside of Section 106 mitigation, then you are more than welcome to, but from a mitigation standpoint solely, it's not going to work, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's a great green measure, it's a great effort for the town. If you think that you have a place to use these, then that's a different story. If you actually have a plan for them, but it's not going to come to fruition for, say, 4 years or 3 years, then that's a different story, and I think we can use that for mitigation if you have a solid plan for it. So that's something else to think about. Just storing them isn't going to work as mitigation. You're going to have to do something else to compensate for that loss.
Short-term storage with a plan.
If you do have a plan, then we can write that into your memorandum of agreement, and then that's kind of what holds you to this compensation. So if it was going to go on a trail somewhere, but you guys needed to do the fundraising to get it, but you have the plan, that's one thing. If it's just solely putting it aside with the hopes that you'll be able to use them one day, that's unfortunately not going to work.
So Jill, do you think that as some sort of selling point for this, maybe a sign in addition to a plan of location might be more successful? So
we've done this in the past where you have those great interpretive panels, and I know you guys have them in Jackson, so adding to them would be a fantastic benefit, and that's definitely something that would mitigate the loss of that bridge. You'd inform the public about it. You can talk a little bit about the importance of this type of bridge, that it was the only one left in New Hampshire, and then the importance kind of its location with the falls and everything there. So that's definitely something that can be done. Yep.
I was looking at the trusses, and this is a 1905 truss, so they're all rivets, so they'd have to be bored out, pop those out, and then we could take some pieces apart. and maybe put some bolts and then hold it together in once it's stored. Just to answer that question.
Okay, so we can reduce the length of it. Okay, Burr?
Yeah, I was just, to Jill, she was talking about the signs and interpretive things. Is that what she suggested might be $30,000 for those? Because at one point we were talking.
Go ahead.
So I did throw out, Burr's right, I did throw out about 30,000 for an estimate to have somebody research the sign, come up with photographs for it, do a design for it, have it fabricated and installed. Is my guess around 30,000, because we don't have a whole lot of information on this bridge, so a good chunk of that is going to be someone sitting in an archive going through things and trying to find photos and trying to get that background information to go onto a panel. So.
Wow.
So we're into it to 30, no matter, I mean, the total project cost is, mitigation cost is 30 at the low end, is what I'm hearing in the town.
And it's a rough estimate. That's if I don't know if Lisa Mossoff is there, if she's able to, she was the historian on the project, if she's able to provide a little bit more information. You know, I'm not going to put her on the spot to give you guys a cost estimate right now, but she might be able to provide a little bit more information to Steve and his team on a cost estimate there.
And Lisa is here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see your hand raised in the back. Okay, did you hear the comments from Jill?
I did.
Okay, anything to add at this time, or?
I think it could be less than 30, but that's about all I can say at this juncture.
Okay. Yeah, don't want to put you on the spot because we all live and die by our numbers, so.
What do we get for the 30?
Ellen has something.
Ellen?
Yeah, I guess I want to add that I can't commit my board right now to it, but I mean, the goal for us to store it wouldn't be to store it just for storage, it would be to use it at some point.
Right.
We build bridges often, and we had talked about putting it up at the Eagle Mountain House. The Eagle doesn't even know about this, but
Third hole, yeah.
The third hole.
but that's not really a public location. It's not. So it seemed like a lot of money to move it someplace where it really wouldn't be seen. So that's
Right.
when we came up with the storage. Obviously, it's going to add $50,000 to the cost of a bridge, but
Yeah.
so my hope was that within, I'm going to use the word 5 years, but that's a kind of rough number, that maybe with other people we could come up with a place that was kind of bridge relevant and
Right.
also useful.
So a definable period of time
Yeah.
and go with that.
Yeah.
So I think it sounds like where we are, and Steve, do we need to talk about the blueberries before I kind of recap this end of the project, this part of the discussion?
Totally up to you. I can talk about blueberry common later.
Let's wait then and make sure I'm on the right track, and then if I'm not, you can intercept here. But I think what sounds logical for the bridge plan is, since we've already approved the design of the bridge and not to incur more costs on it, it sounds like it would make the most sense to stick with the current design and then have the committee of, informal committee of Ann, Ellen, Burr come up with an alternative of how much it'll cost and how to take the trusses for mitigation, find a home for them or a future home, and come back to us with part of that as part of the new construction costs, etc. Does that sound like the right direction? And sure, it doesn't encompass everything today, but at least it moves us forward.
Yeah, I don't mind it, I just kick it back to Ann there,
I guess I'll just be honest and say it pains me to think that we're going to not still consider possible reattachment. But again, I am in line to support what decision the town makes, obviously.
Steve, did we have any initial drawings we did with the trusses still on there, right? So we had the trusses on and the trusses off, right?
Correct.
And you want to have Steve share those or Burr share those with you, and then
That would be great.
you can, I guess, I feel like
Make a
we're,
final decision today, I mean.
we're not going to decide today. So I guess let's bring it back to that, look at what they looked like before. If now that we have the cost from DOT as well to help that, and it may make the decision different for the town, then let's revisit both designs, and come back to us with some recommendations. And we can put it on either the next or the meeting after that.
Sounds good.
Steve, Jill, anything, or Ron, anything else from your standpoint on that? And I hear you.
I don't have anything else. Thank you very
Okay.
much for letting us participate via
Yeah.
Zoom. I guess one more thing to add very quickly is that we do still need to run this through the Division of Historical Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers. I think if you were to reuse the trusses, nobody would have any questions and we could easily process. From a Section 106 standpoint, I think if we re-put the trusses on the bridge, you could get away with a no adverse effect, which, you know, the engineers might understand this term, but you have a lot less paperwork to deal with.
Yeah.
If you are going to do anything else, then you're going to have a bit more paperwork and a bit more communication with the Division of Historical Resources and Army Corps. So,
Okay.
and if you guys have questions on that, I can give you some timelines and exactly who everybody needs to be involved with. I don't think I need to do it right now. But
Okay, so
I'm here to help. So.
that's what you referred to as doing it outside of Section 106?
So this is all still within Section 106.
Okay.
Section 106, you can have a no adverse effect or an adverse effect.
Okay.
Adverse effect has a bit more paperwork.
Okay,
Okay,
that
just
makes
things
sense.
to think about.
Okay. Frank?
So basically, we're leaving it on the table that we could perhaps use these trusses on the original bridge. Is that
Right.
where we're at right now?
There's a pop, we haven't closed that deal.
No, I know that, but I mean, we're kind of leaving that on the table as
Yeah.
something to still discuss.
Right.
Just making sure.
And maybe somebody can come up with some places that might be more suitable.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just thinking right by the pond going across
Yeah.
to Wentworth there in front of the Center T.
Mm.
That might be another spot. But again, somebody can research those and, come back with some ideas hopefully.
Burr?
So just for the informal committee here, it's whatever least costly and whatever is, we can do expeditiously, because we don't want to delay going
Absolutely.
any longer than we have to.
I think those are two great goals.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of what I was getting at was, it's not very articulate here, is if it's $25,000, $30,000 for the sign package, kiosk, interpretive display, and then you're gonna have some costs associated with preserving the trusses,
Right, it could
Those-
offset
those
putting them
things.
back on.
You probably may not be that far away, and I don't know if the cost of, if it's outside of the project of the, recoding the bridges, is that gonna be 80-20 cost, or is that gonna be, that portion gonna be 100% on us?
Yeah, I hear you. And so let's come up with those options and present with DOT and see. And you can probably do that, propose those questions while you're doing this research.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Steve, anything else to add?
No, the one thing is if we do put the trusses back on the bridge, it'll impede a little bit on the sidewalk width on
Yep.
the downstream side of the bridge,
Yep,
maybe
So-
about by a foot.
yeah,
So instead of them being 6 feet 2 inches, it might be 5 feet 2 inches, which should still be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, but that should still be acceptable if it's over 5 feet for minimum width for a sidewalk.
Yeah, I think that's still acceptable. It's not our standard width, but, that's fine.
And it does widen out to 8 feet 5 inches, so that'd be
Yeah.
about 7
So
feet
cut out.
5 inches instead.
okay.
Yep.
All right, to be continued. Blueberries.
Blueberries. All right. So I have this nice foam board plot of the blueberry diagram that's in the letter that's being currently reviewed by the Natural Heritage Board. And unfortunately I'm not there, but I can share my screen, Barbara, and show you, maybe give you a little explanation about these blueberries, if that's okay.
Yep, hold on. Okay, I think you should be able to.
Muted. Remove them.
No, he's not muted.
There you go. You're on.
No, he's there. Yep, okay.
There we go.
And this is for just the selectmen. I apologize, you can't see this beautiful diagram here, but, okay.
Yes, and if anyone wants to see a copy of this graphic, then I would be happy to share it with them. It's very important. Like I said, it's a draft because it's under
Yes,
review. But basically, if you can see, can you guys see my pointer okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'll zoom in a little bit more. So this is Valley Cross Road. This is the north is going up. So this is the northwest quadrant of the bridge. You can see the Wildcat River here on the right in blue. And I almost thought about coloring the roadway to make it even clearer, but I didn't have time. But anyway, the dwarf blueberries are a rare breed that were found on the site, and basically with the existing wing wall on this northwest side is maybe about 60% of the length of this is a proposed wing wall. And just past where that's going to be is a nice, large, healthy, dense patch of dwarf blueberry bushes. And there's a few other small patches closer to where the construction's going to be. And then there's another one across the street where the utility pole is, and there's a little cluster right behind that utility pole. Those are the main locations where the blueberry bushes are. These smaller ones that are not quite as, but I think they're called low vigor, they're not quite as healthy as the other batches. Those would have to be picked up and relocated, at least, well, probably more than temporarily, if some of them are right on where the proposed bridge is going to be, but relocated to another location near the bridge and within the easement. That's all written in a report that I was going to share with you, the draft report. It was assembled by Norman Doe, which is our environmental sub. So the idea here is we're trying to, and this will be written into the plans, contract documents, is that these blueberry bushes would be preserved and protected during construction, and relocated ones would also have to be watered and cared for during that time, and they could be relocated back in a similar area. And the reason why is, I guess, with the ledge outcrop, and you've all been there, you've seen that there's a lot of ledge outcrop underneath the bridge and in the area, is it's very acidic, and of course everyone knows blueberries love acidity, so that's why they're thriving in that location. And they are very rare, so that is that's the reason why we're really trying to preserve these blueberry bushes.
Interesting. Can we not publish this so everybody wants to come and visit?
Yeah.
This part of the meeting is confidential. So is there anything that we need to do other than be aware of these?
No, it's just it's one of the few things that as we're trying to finish up the environmental documentation that's going to NHDES, the two things that are pending that completion so we can move along is, of course, the mitigation of the trusses and get that information to the MOA, something that the town agrees upon and DOT is happy with, and it's something that Army Corps has a good chance of approving, and of course adding some information about the dwarf blueberry bushes.
Okay.
And how we're going to preserve them.
Awesome. Any questions?
Is it okay to pick the blueberries?
No.
You might have to check with Mr. and Mrs. Connors.
Yeah, it's on their house. That's interesting. Okay, and they're aware of all this as well, right?
I don't know if they're aware.
Burr, do you know, have you been in touch with the Connors at all about the blueberry patches
Not
that
for
are
the-
there?
Just for the easement, not for the dwarf blueberries.
Okay. Maybe we should make them aware just so they, preserve them
Don't
as
dig 'em
well.
up.
And don't dig them up or do anything. Whose responsibility would it be to contact them?
I can give them a call if you want.
You've been working with them a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, so Burr will call the Connors, make sure they're aware of the different areas based on your drawings, so they don't do anything harmful and appreciate them as well. All right. Anything else regarding the wonderful Valley Cross Bridge that is so attractive and historic, which I, as a kid, called it Thunder Bridge because every time a car would go over, it sounded like thunder, as I'm sure a lot of other people did. So,
Yeah, Dick the Gun.
yeah. So, all right, well, Jill, Ron, and Steve, I really appreciate all your time today, and Burr as well, and Ann and Ellen, thank you. And I'm sorry, I apologize, I forgot. Lisa, thank you so much, everyone, for contributing on this topic. I really appreciate it. All right, the next is another of our favorite agenda items here, which is the Venice Driveway. We have been asked to reconsider our reconsideration, and I guess I'll ask, John, did you have any thoughts or comments, or did you want to make a motion to deny the reconsideration request or approve it?
I have no thoughts on that, no.
Okay.
It's-
Anything from you on any motion?
Yeah, I think that I support the last reconsideration that gave Benish the right to put the driveway 2-to-1 vote. And I was the one dissenting vote. And I will remain the dissenting vote, only because I want to lend some credence to those folks who are not so sure that this is the right thing. So I believe our vote was a good vote, but I just want to leave that little bit of deference to the people who are not so sure that it's the right thing to do. And perhaps we can come up with a better plan so that everybody could be happy about this. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so this is going to be sort of a convoluted sounding request, but I'd like to have a motion to deny the reconsideration request. I'll make the motion to deny the reconsideration request.
I will second.
And you're gonna,
I can say I'm with the, denying it because I'm for the 2-to-1,
right?
with making sure that the one vote is.
So that's why I said it's kind of convoluted sounding.
That's good, you got it.
I do want to say a couple of comments too, though, on the letters that we have received from several of the abutters, 3 abutters to be precise. I'm not going to read them into the minutes, but they will be posted as addendums to the minutes, so everyone is aware of those. We have reviewed several legal opinions, and we have received legal advice from our attorneys that is privileged, but this is not an easy task, like we've said in the past as well, and we did the best we could, the 3 of us on our own, to weigh our arguments and make a decision. And I'm sure that both of you, both sides will continue to consult your legal counsel to figure out hopefully a good resolution to this.
Can I make a comment?
We really didn't allow any public comment at the last, so I'm really hesitant to allow public
Well, Frank
comment.
Dench was allowed to speak.
I'm sorry,
Frank Dench was allowed to speak.
Not the last one.
not at the last motion.
Okay.
All right, so again, the letters, I appreciate the input, and those will be attached to the minutes. All right, the next item 6 for select, yes. Oh.
I have a comment.
What?
My name is Claire Lukowitz,
Mhm.
and I've been watching the back and forth in the meeting about the last topic that was presented. And so I feel that it's not quite fair for me not to make a comment on your decision.
Okay,
And it's a very brief one, but I think it's really important for me to state that the selectmen have allowed bullies to dictate their decisions. the way
Claire,
that
you know
we
what, I'm
see
gonna
it.
cut you off right now, okay?
You are?
No, yeah, I'm gonna,
Really?
yes, because Claire,
Yeah.
we're not gonna have any public comment at this
No
time.
public comment.
Yes.
So
Yeah, if you wanna
I don't
if-
understand the process then, because we do feel that this process has not given us a chance to speak.
I appreciate your input, and if you
and
wanna
we are
contact
our own
me
attorneys.
outside of the meeting, you can
Outside
contact
the
me.
meeting, so at the end of the meeting, like you did before with Frank Benish?
No, the only thing we did at the end of the last meeting was sign the driveway permit, and that was it.
That
And
was the
I
last meeting.
I
Okay.
apologize, but I'm gonna cut you off now.
Okay,
And we're gonna move on to the next.
so at the end of the meeting, we'll talk, like you have with
Can
Frank
I
before.
please ask you
Sure.
not to comment anymore?
Sure,
Thank
right, yeah,
you.
at the end,
We'll wait till the public comment,
sure.
like you allowed Frank.
The next item is the Grayson Garage, and I have asked Frank to take over, meeting with Jay and
Yeah.
Pat and the Brooks, who are willing to help on that, so, and possibly
Right.
the chamber,
Right.
and you'll
We're
be
in the
meeting
works.
with them sometime this week. So, there's no update on that further. The next issue is the public parking, and Dottie, is that your first name, Dottie, right?
Yes.
I'm Barbara Campbell, we haven't met yet, but, so there was some discussion about the Zumba class being held in the public parking lot near the library.
Yes.
So we really don't have any, I don't have any opposition, I guess. You know, we're allowed to have the pickleball court in the back of the driveway here and stuff. So we've gotten a few opinions and insurance recommendations and things. So I guess I just want to make sure that you follow the right process of going through where to hold your classes by filling out the application that's available from the town office here. Make sure you get the right information, and then if you're going to use electricity on the library, that you talk to Lycan or someone at the library and follow the necessary process. So you don't just sort of have somebody in the parking lot that isn't expected and go from there.
Right, okay.
Are there any questions about that?
No, Ron, I know it was a safety, one of the things was mentioned was safety, and we were way in the back. And at Friday morning at 8:30, and the library was closed, so there wasn't a lot of activity in the parking lot.
Right.
So it was pretty safe.
Yeah, I hear you, and you know, sometimes it will be, and I hope it is always safe for you guys, and also nice and quiet and peaceful too,
Right.
because that's the intent of your classes, is to have fun and be safe
Right.
and enjoy it. So just, if you could just ask you to follow the process of filling out the forms so everybody knows when you're going to be there, and then you know, if Julie and Julie have any other recommendations on how to keep it either separate or roped off or whatever, that would be great.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for what you do too. It's we got several pieces of input saying how much that people enjoy your classes, so we really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
I made a mistake before because I did not finalize the motion by asking all in favor or all against. So all in favor of the motion,
For which motion?
denying their reconsideration.
For the Venice Driveway.
Correct.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
3-0 officially. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that mishap there. Thank you for attending, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, the next is the trustees withdrawal request, and this is for the Board of Selectmen requested to follow the following withdrawals from the trust funds. $130,000 from the Highway Road Reconstruction Capital Reserve Fund 0064, invoice 3386 dated 9/1/2021, and that is for Central Asphalt Paving Company. So I will take a motion to approve that disbursement. No withdrawal.
I will make that motion.
I'll second
All in favor?
it.
Aye.
Aye. Sign, please.
Oh.
Thank you. All right, short-term rentals, we have no new permits at this meeting, probably will at the next meeting, but we do have 3 that are pending. The first one is Carter Nut Inn, and Carter Nut Inn has been back and forth. I understood from the last time that they were at the meeting that they were going to apply for a conditional use permit, and now they're saying they're refusing to apply for a conditional use permit. So our legal counsel is recommending that we file a notice of violation and actually consult with an attorney about taking them to court for not filing it, because they do have guests. We gave them a reprieve on not having to do it until we settled the matter, but I felt like we settled the matter in the meeting and should move on. Thoughts on that, John?
I'm still a little, it seems like such a gray area. I'm just worried, Peter said, his response here, go to court, and I'm just worried about, is there some other alternative, I guess.
I know. I know there's been back and forth between Dale Purdy and the owners and us about why they, and it's been months, but why they felt they did have to or did not have to file for conditional use permit. And it also has to do with the fact that they want to remain an inn. And the two are not, one doesn't matter to the other as far as I know. They have a 6-year period to remain as an inn, and the conditional use permit is required based on the way the ordinance is written, and they are renting to short-term renters. So it seemed really clear, in my opinion, that was what they had to do, and I thought we had, asked and answered that in a few of the meetings. So I'm certainly fine with not making a motion and having a little bit more weigh in from Peter and see if there are other
What's the difference,
alternatives.
I'm sorry, what's the difference between an inn and a short-term rental at
That's
this
what I'm
place?
saying,
You know,
there's
how,
not-
how are you differentiating between the two?
Right,
you
the
know?
inn, that was what we asked them months ago, to go to their
That's why I'm still
legal
confused.
counsel saying, why can't they be an inn and a short-term rental? They're not mutually exclusive, and one doesn't have to be the other, or vice versa. I believe they can still remain an inn, but they are a conditional use permit because they have short-term rentals in a rural residential district. And I'm not sure why they think they don't have to live up to that.
Now, are these short-term rentals have kitchens and everything? I mean,
Not there, they don't.
No, there's a common kitchen area.
common kitchen area they all
Which-
share. I mean, that to me acts like an inn more than a
there
short-term
could
rental,
be
which
the-
is usually a standalone home. You know?
Usually, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be, I
Yeah.
understand that, but it just seems like it's not well defined.
And they don't have an innkeeper living there full-time, so it could be, that's part of the inside of it, but I don't know. I'm fine with not necessarily making a motion to take them to court until we get more clarification of the definition between an inn and a short-term rental, and make sure that we're very clear on that before we incur legal costs, etc. So continued for the next meeting.
Right?
I think
It says
Frank's-
refuser on this one, so
Frank's has conflict
connections
of
to the law
interest.
firm.
Oh, conflict of interest.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just talking to you.
But
Do you want to put your 2 cents in at all? I know it's killing you over there.
I know. I agree with what John had to say about,
Yeah, I maybe just give it one more meeting and find if we can just get a little more clarification, just for me.
Yeah.
I just don't see the difference between the two. And, why,
I hate to be a stickler on the conditional use permit. One of the most important things is, are they a good neighbor? Are they paying their taxes for rooms and meals, or meals and rentals, or whatever it is? Are they doing things right? Do they have proper egress, proper ventilation and fire extinguishers and all that? That's the purpose of us having a conditional use permit, to keep residents safe and visitors safe. So again, we'll ask Peter for some more clarification on that and bring it up at the next meeting. Whew. Okay, the next one is Troy and Kelly Zerveskis, who were asked to change their ad produce their ad before they would get their conditional use permit signed. Last meeting, we had 2 conditional use permit applications for Vacasa homes, being represented by Vacasa, and we allowed them to have their short-term rental applications, conditional use permit applications approved, and they would provide their ad once they're approved. And if they don't provide their ad, then they would be sent a violation notice. So I will take a motion to approve the short-term rental conditional use permit for Troy and Kelly Zerveskis at 30 Red Barn Road.
I'll make that motion, we accept that.
I'll second.
Zaleski's Troy and Kelly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, this is conditional with the
Yep,
approval of the ad.
and not thrilled with that, but that's the way it goes, and Julie will follow up to get a copy of their ad now that they have been approved, and if they don't live up to the requirements, they'll get a violation notice, which seems backwards to me. So, the other one is that O'Brien, the first violation notice is still pending, and it is not within time. They still have time to respond to that. So, all right, Kevin, I see you skulking in the back there for the building and driveway permits.
Yeah.
Any comments?
No, I went over this, pretty straightforward, what it says there for all the new permits.
Okay,
Yep.
Are you behind or ahead of your last year's schedule?
I'm ahead. Yeah, a lot more.
Wait, does that mean you have more, or?
Yeah, I think I have more.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. The next meeting, because we have no real change and no update from Emily Benson on change in protocol for COVID, we will be having a combined live and Zoom meeting, and that will be on Tuesday, October 12th at 3:30 p.m. And the meeting after that will be Tuesday, October 26th at 3:30 p.m. And that will be for in person for sure and Zoom to be determined. All right, any public comment?
Yes, Claire Lukowitz. I'm very disappointed, as you can imagine, because to quote my neighbor who wrote one of the letters, you're our gatekeepers as a board. We rely on the steadfastness of your judgment. And if not the town selectmen, who will protect the land? How do we protect our natural spaces if selectmen do not enforce the town's own legitimate rules? Should we allow bullies to change the town as we know it for their own personal gain? I'm very concerned for all the citizens in Jackson. We have open space. It's declared open space. It doesn't get built on. So now, all of a sudden, there's this open space. We've all enjoyed this for years. And you're not doing, as we can see, your job to protect that open space. So anyone, any citizen in Jackson who thinks that they have privacy and land around them that's not going to be built on because it's open space declared, they can't depend or trust. I've lost a lot of trust in the select board to uphold the regulations of the town. So I don't really understand why that is so. But I feel it's so important for you all to know that I support my neighbors and I support that there's something very wrong with the process if you can't do what you were elected to do. And I'm paying taxes, have been for almost 40 years, to support those of you who have offered to uphold the regulations of the town. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Claire. Any other public comment?
Yeah.
Jim?
My name's Jim Lukowitz, and I think it's been clear from way there a year ago when we went to the planning board and brought this to their attention, and they dismissed us by saying, oh, the select board is the enforcing authority. Next meeting, Frank Benish had 45 minutes of informational discussion. Then, I'm trying to remember, then I think, you read a letter at a select board meeting from Peter Malia, and Claire asked if she could comment or ask questions. You said no, you have to go through your attorney. And then in the public comment section, you let Frank go on and on and on. I mean, what's the process here? At the last select meeting, where you were supposed to provide Frank the rationale for unanimously denying the permit, you instead read a letter from his attorney. That letter was supposed to go to our attorney, at least go to us. It's pretty clear what the pattern here is. If a fellow board member perhaps, is arguing some case, it seems like we get short shrift.
Two comments. Number one, on the information that I read in the one meeting and said I would provide you a copy. That was attorney-client privileged information. I was mistaken in telling you that I could give you that information.
You told me that a number of times.
So, okay, so that you keep bringing it up, I'm going to keep answering that question, issue. The second thing is, I'm sorry, could you tell me your second issue? The letter that was from Jeremy Eggleton, we assumed wrongly that was provided to your attorney, and it was not. And after that meeting, when it was made clear that it wasn't, then Peter Malia forwarded that to your attorney.
It's a process. It stinks. really stinks.
I appreciate your comment.
My comment. So you know. now.
Any
You
other-
know.
Public comment, please? All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn 4:29.